Okay.
Let's
So, Tom, then what would you say as, I guess, do we call you the founder of the Guatemala Stove Project?
Yeah,
I mean,
that
you're
would
not
be
on the
fair.
board of directors. Now you're a registered charity, and there is a board of directors, of which I believe there's lots of rules and regulations, and you're not allowed to be on the board, right, as the founder?
Well,
Or you've chosen.
you're not allowed to have financial remuneration and be on the board. I don't have financial remuneration anyway,
Right.
but if I was to be paid, then you couldn't be on the board. The directors have to be volunteer.
And are you on the board then? I didn't think you
No,
were.
I'm not. No.
Okay.
I sort of think that in some day in the future, I may eventually change as someone else takes over being coordinator. That I could see myself being on the board in that situation. But
So
no, I've never been on the board.
So you are a coordinator, is what we
Yeah.
should call you.
Yeah, the coordinator.
Not the
that's
boss, the grand poobah of the...
right. No.
So as the coordinator, and you sort of have this father figure persona when you're certainly on the trip, taking care of everyone and making sure everybody's, knows what they're doing. And so what would you say are the most important things that you offer to others through the Guatemala Stove Project? And I don't just mean the people from Guatemala, we know what you're offering them, but I mean the people from Canada or from wherever that are coming and helping. What do you think are the most important things to offer them?
It's really huge, but when people come from Canada, from our society, which most of us think is the center of the world or is the whole world, and then you're suddenly in Guatemala, and it's just such a third world country, such a different world. It has the potential of really opening people's minds up, and unfortunately, we're all very aware of so many charities that go wrong, and it makes it hard for people sometimes to give because they're uncertain about what they give, whether it will really go to the people they want it to go to. And my belief has always been with the Guatemala Stove Project that this could be a hands-on project where people can come themselves and see what we're doing, and gives Canadians, it does two things for us. The first thing is it makes us aware of how incredibly wealthy we are. I mean, even if we're not really making much money in Canada, we're still incredibly wealthy compared to these people who are hungry and living in shacks. So that's the first one, is this awareness of really how fortunate we are. And then the next one is that we can, as we put our nose to the grindstone, or as we're willing to do a bit of work, we can actually make a big difference for these people. It's very possible to. So not only do we have more than we need, but we're in a position where we can help people who have less than what they need. So that's the second one, and the third one. I guess I'm going to make sort of a generalizations, but I've come to sort of believe that when people talk about materialism and spiritualism, that the more material you become, the more things that you have, it's very hard to stay spiritual. And these people that live in Guatemala that materially have so little, they seem to be mostly spiritually so strong. And I don't mean religious, but I mean just in this sense of happiness and presence, and not living a life of complaining and feeling that everything's wrong, but really being happy to see the sun shining down and to see their children and to see the good things in life. They're very aware of those things. So the volunteers, most of the volunteers come back from the trip feeling wealthy in a material way, but also in a spiritual way, just from having met these people and seen how strong they are and how centered they are. And they're that way not from having new cars or big houses, and they have none of that stuff, and yet they seem to be happier than many people we know here who have a lot of stuff.
So really what people gain by by participating in the Guatemala Stove Project is so much more than giving a few dollars or getting a plane ticket. It's something that they'll feel for a long time.
Absolutely. It can be a really strong, I mean, I know you know because you've just come back, but it's a life-changing experience for many of our volunteers. You just come back feeling so much enriched.
And how does that warm you to think that you've guided people to something that they may never have even known was there?
It just makes me feel lucky to be in that position. And it's an entirely open-ended thing. We're always looking for more volunteers, and there's no closed shop here. The more people that want to participate and do this work, the better. I think it's really, for our culture, we need this as much as they need. As much as they need the help we give them, we need the opportunity to be able to do worthwhile work like this.
So you've been going to Guatemala now for well over a decade. How long do you see yourself doing this? Bringing people there, sharing this experience, building stoves, facilitating.
I think for as long as people are still able to fly in a reasonable expense. I see every year the airline tickets get more expensive, and with global climate change and flying being so hard on the environment, it makes me wonder if the project will have to eventually shift so it doesn't involve flying back and forth. But it certainly still works now. There must be some way around that. One year we did take a school bus down there, so maybe the future would involve people going in a bus instead of on an airplane.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well you've just said something that I know for a lot of us really confused us and angered us and upset us. Was the environment that we saw wonderful people, but we saw a lot of garbage. We saw a lot of big corporate companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, promoting their stuff and junk food and everything just thrown. Saw people dumping bags of garbage everywhere. The most beautiful scenery, but the environment just being trashed. Like what I would consider like a lack of respect for the environment. How do you reconcile that with your obvious care and for the environment?
Well, it's interesting with these Mayan communities, but you can see very much how the outside world has affected these people by what communities that are right on the highway are like. And then I've had the opportunity to go to some communities that you have to walk to, that you can't drive to because there are no roads. Mm-hmm. And the further you get away from the road, the less garbage there is, the cleaner, all that trash. When people live with nature and they make their tamales wrapped in corn leaves, they can throw the corn leaf away and it just becomes part of the soil again. Mm-hmm. And that's what you see when you're far away from the road. So you can see how the outside influence of the modern world has had an enormous destructive effect on these people. Mm-hmm. But to give us hope, there are still many people that live outside of that world, and you don't see them on the road, but as you go way into the mountains, you do see them. So I like to think that they'll be the inspiration.
Panamaquim?
is getting better because it's not. You can still drive there. I mean, it's a four-wheel drive road, but there are some communities that you can't drive to at all. You have to walk.
Well, they talked. Some of the people who presented talked about that. Mm-hmm. They're not here because the car doesn't go there, and those places. But I didn't find around the school as dirty as some of the other places that.
No, it's much nicer there.
Yeah, like I didn't see garbage dumped all over the place. But I have to tell you, in my trip, it's one of the things that really upset me. In Comatencio, all around there, not so much maybe up where we had to walk up to
Mhm.
get to places. But I guess maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention to that. But what would you say about the big corporate presences then, about Coca-Cola and Pepsi that are there in Xela? We saw a Coca-Cola van with a megaphone on the top driving around the street.
Well, I don't think they're really doing these people any favors. And we also heard in that clinic about how diabetes is becoming a problem in Guatemala, and that they never had that before. And apparently Coca-Cola or soft drinks are one of the major causes because they have so much sugar in them.
Because one of the things you told us when we came as volunteers, when we had our briefing, a little scare tactic before we went, was please do not bring candy. Please do not bring candy. Why did you tell us that?
Well, when you see these children, it's quite a contrast. Some of them have beautiful teeth, but then you also see other kids with rotten teeth. And from people who, well, it's people who are working there longer ago, or as you go further off the road, you see people who still don't have sugar and still have good teeth, and people who don't have garbage. And then you see, well, I guess the extreme example would be that place you're working where people actually live right in the dump, just live in garbage, surrounded by garbage.
In the city. Right,
Yeah.
in the city. Where commercialism is the idea, where they watch a lot of TV. Although, Tom, in some of those little houses where we were building stoves, there were TVs.
Some of them do have TVs, but people say that it has a very destructive effect on their culture. People would probably be better off without the TVs.
Because then they aspire to the American, the Western ideal.
They do. And in Guatemala, most of those TVs would only get Guatemalan television stations, but Guatemalan TV is very racist. All the stars are white. None of the stars look like they're mine. There's no dark-skinned people who are stars. So the stars they're aspiring to be are wealthy white people.
And then they don't wear their, in the city you see more of the young people not wearing their indigenous dress, wearing what you would see. Actually, we saw stores that say North American clothing, or American, not North, American clothing. Be something special, wear American clothing. Instead of their wonderful woven.
They certainly have that impression, but at some of those stores, I think you'll find all the clothing is second-hand clothing that might actually have come from America.
Yes.
That you can buy very cheaply down there.
Yeah. So I guess I really want to talk to you though about the school, and I don't know if it's a painful topic for you, if it's a happy topic.